So, welcome back, and now we will be starting with one of the most important news, in-depth analysis of this news that has happened within just the first week of January, which has a lot of angle and it is changing the world order at the same time. So, today we'll be talking about US attack on Venezuela. Okay, as you can see in this image, the US Donald president that is Donald Trump. Okay, the president, ex-president now I will say, of Venezuela, that is Maduro, and the current interim president of Venezuela, that is Miss Rodriguez. Okay, and here you can, as you can see in this image, it is one of the reason that we have heard so far is about oil. But let us see, is it just about the oil, or there is so many other things that is important from your exam perspective? Moving forward, now US conducted a military operation in Venezuela and code named this operation as Operation Absolute Resolve. This is a kind of a question that can be asked in your examination. We have studied so far, so we have listened so far in your news. I'm very sure you might have heard about Venezuela, attack on Venezuela, but what was that operation name called as? Okay, that is important for your exam. That is Operation Absolute Resolve. Okay, resulting the capture of President Nicolas Maduro and his wife Celia Flores and all other senior officials, along with the then president of Venezuela. Now, if you see this on the map of world map, okay, this is US and this is Venezuela here right away, and it has a very close proximity with US state. Okay, and we will also study what all things are important and why Venezuela, and why there are certain other countries on which US told that they are gonna attack. So this action is been justified under Trump Porolera to the Monroe Doctrine, which was basically given in 1823, which marks a sharp escalation in US interventionism in Latin America. Now, first let us understand what is Monroe Doctrine, which was actually took place in 1823. I have always told you that any event that happens on that day is not because it has happened just on that day. It definitely has a history of 2000, sorry, at least 200, years old history. We will understand all of them in detail. Now, before understanding the protocol and the doctrine also, let us understand why oil reserves and all those things in detail. So the Monroe Doctrine, which is articulated by President James Monroe in 1823, had certain following principles, which included two of them most important, that is non-colonization and non-interference. So non-colonization says that European powers should not establish any new colonies in the America, first thing, and non-interference, that any attempt by external power to influence the Western Hemisphere nations will be viewed as hostile to US. So now this second principle that we have, that is non-interference, which says that any attempt by external powers to influence the Western Hemisphere, that is towards US and any countries near by US also, the whole of the Western Hemisphere nation, will be viewed as an hostile to United States. So when I say this, viewed as a hostile to United States, so you see, Venezuela is part of this Western Hemisphere, and Venezuela has a lot of oil reserve. And in like long back, Venezuela told that I'm not going to, like, make the transactions of oil in US dollars, and the whole game is of US dollar, because if they do not make payment in US dollar is gonna suffer. And they started trading with Russia, they started trading with China, and they started trading in their local currency, which became as a challenge, a open challenge to US, and that is one of the reason this doctrine came into the picture, and this is a doctrine through which it has been justified that what intervention is done by US is correct, because it sees any the external powers like Russia, China to influencing the Western Hemisphere, and it view it as a hostile to United Nations. So why did US intervene in Venezuela? The certain factors that are there. First is they have set up a narrative of narco terrorism and security. These narratives or these charges are the US has charged the then president, the ex-president of Venezuela, Maduro, and his senior officials to be involved in narco terrorism and drug trafficking in the country, and also supplying all those things to different states and countries. So portraying this regime as a direct security threat to US and linking it to the US fentanyl crisis. First thing. Second thing, obviously the oil reserves. Venezuela has one of the largest proven crude oil, and oil and data are the most important things in the world right now. So it has 300 billion barrels, or let's say a fifth of the proven oil reserves of all the world. Yet it though accounts for less than 1% of global oil production, because it has a lot of restrictions, tariffs from the US government. That is one of the reason. And also why this attack is important, because though US being the superpower has $38 trillion debt, and if US is able to have control over Venezuela, it has control over Venezuela, so it has control over their oil reserves at the same time. And when they have a control over their oil reserves at the same time, it is easy for them to basically I will say to clear off their debt, which can be done very easily. And when US will intervene in Venezuela, they will trade that oil in US dollars, that is gonna pay the debt for US in a very easy manner. So one factor is a narrative that has been said, that is narco-terrorism. Second is oil reserves and geopolitics, that is going to play a very important role. One you can also say that is Monroe Doctrine, and especially the second principle of it, which is non-interference as a threat to the Western Hemisphere nation. Then according to experts, US debt stands for 38.4 trillion, posing a significant challenge to the current US administration, which must be pay by $1 trillion in interest annually, as the US government is minimally required to pay 8% interest on the existing debt. Though if we say that Venezuela it has captured, it will still take 3 to 4 years to clear their debts as per the sources of the news. But still, at least they will be able to do that, because no other sources are being finding so easy to do that. So that is one of the reason. Another is countering extra regional powers. So as I told you that Venezuela started having deepening ties with Russia, China and Iran, which were viewed as a challenge to US dominance in the Western hemispheres, and promoting Washington to reassert its primacy under reviewed Monroe style framework. However, the US Venezuela conflict had raised concern in Mexico, Colombia and Cuba at the same time. When post the attack on, let's say, Venezuela, US president has already said that now they are looking for protecting and all those, looking such kind of interventions in Mexico, Colombia and Cuba, citing the same sources that they have a drug narcotic terrorism and drug narrative and all certain reason. And this was to still enough, even the US president told that it is gonna attack, not attack, sorry, it is gonna protect and go and save Greenland, and will do the security work for the Greenland. Greenland is part of Denmark. Okay, Denmark has three parts. One of them is Greenland. So for a matter of fact, Venezuela, Mexico, Colombia might not still be part of so most friendly nations with US, but Denmark, which is Greenland, which is a part of Denmark, is a NATO ally, and NATO is a group of organizations which is a part of US, and Warsaw is of Russia, that is USSR, which is now Russia. Okay, so NATO always being part of US, Greenland being part of Denmark, and then being a larger part of NATO, which the president of Denmark already told that we are any which ways a part of NATO, which gives us security alliance, that if anybody attacks or does something wrong, we have a group of whole NATO alliance to protect. So US does not need to come and protect us, first thing. Because, and now imagine if US is telling and now interfering in the matters of their own allies, that is NATO countries. This is one of them, and there are so many, so there will be a different kind of reaction from all NATO countries, and it will trigger a lot of conflicts in the whole of the world, all the chaos and everything. Then eventually, after certain hours, US president finally said that no, we are not going for the security of Greenland and so other. Okay, Greenland also has a lot of natural resources. The whole fight is most of the time for the natural resources. Okay, so now, when we see all of this thing, it highlights the fear of sovereignty erosion. Sovereignty, that is the independence of that state, erosion through military pressures, the sanctions, and under the pretext of counter narratives and everything that is told as on the basis of security is been justified by the U.S. government. Now, other fact that we should know, we have already studied by of OPEC countries. Okay, so Venezuela is one of the most important organization of the OPEC producing countries that largely dominates the oil production. So again, from international organization, OPEC countries, its foundation, its headquarter, its renaming, change of headquarter, and all of these things become important from your international organization. Now, this is how again it is connecting with your static GK, and all those OPEC data will become here important. Now, as we have seen that now Delcy Rodriguez has become the Venezuela's new interim president after the ex-president of Venezuela, that is Maduro. Okay, she served as the vice president since 2018. She is 56-year-old, a lawyer and a politician, and has a lengthy career representing the revolution started by the late Hugo Chavez on the world stage. Now she has condemned the act of US, and because she condemned the act of US, that the president of US, that is Donald Trump, threatens Venezuela's new leader. Okay, Ms. Rodriguez, with a fate worse than Maduro's. So in a telephonic interview which took place, this morning, that is the last morning. It's the most latest current affair. So the President Donald Trump issued as not so veiled threat against the new Venezuela leader, that is Delcy Rodriguez, saying that if she does not do what is right, she is going to pay a very big price, probably bigger than Maduro, referring to Nicolas Maduro's now residing in New York City jail. And Trump made it very clear that he will not stand for Rodriguez's deficient rejection of the armed US intervention that resulted in Maduro's captures at the same time. So if you see, it is more like forcing and getting into somebody's sovereignty at the same time. Also, if we can tell it in a more better manner, it is making purposely the elected leaders as a puppet over there, and because they want the reserves and all those stuffs. And then, as I told you, that initially the Donald Trump also talked about Greenland, and then he clarified his fact that we do not need Greenland absolutely, he said, describing the island as a part of Denmark and a NATO ally as surrounded by Russian and Chinese ships. So we are just concerned because of that reason. So these are, some of the most important things that are there from your current affairs for the first week of January, and in-depth analysis of the most important topic, that is Venezuela crisis, or I can say intervention by US in Venezuela. So it is not just about oil but a lot of thing that is there, and we will keep updating as and when things are changing with regards to this topic that is going every now and then. Okay,